Nobody likes to mention this, but Keanu Reeves should not exist. Not in the way he does, not at the level he does, not after everything that happened between 1989 and 2014. Think about it for a second. This is a man who was written off after Bill and Ted, written off again after Dracula, written off a third time after the Matrix sequels disappointed everyone, written off a fourth time when the mid-2000s swallowed his career whole. 4 times Hollywood buried him, but guess what? 4 times he came back stronger. Most actors don't survive one industry right off. Keanu Reeves survived 4, and somehow ended up more beloved at 60 than he was at 30. But here is the thing nobody talks about. That survival wasn't luck, it wasn't charm, it wasn't even talent alone. It was the movies. Specific movies. Films that arrived at exactly the right moment and either launched him, redirected him, saved him, or revealed something about him that the industry had completely missed. Today, walk with me as we count down the 10 movies that built, broke, and ultimately defined the most unlikely career in Hollywood history. These are the top 10 movies that changed Keanu Reeves' career forever. And by the time we get to number 1, you most definitely will never see him the same way again. Let's begin. Number 10, Chain Reaction, 1996. Director, Andrew Davis. We are starting with the one everyone pushes aside. And the reason it belongs on this list is exactly because everyone forgets it. Chain Reaction arrives in 1996, right in the gap between Point Break and Speed on one side and The Devil's Advocate on the other. Keanu plays Eddie Kasalovich, a machinist working on a clean energy project whose lab gets attacked and who spends the next 2 hours running from a government conspiracy alongside Morgan Freeman. Yeah, you heard me right. The film is not great. The plot has more holes than the laboratory that gets blown up in the first act. And Keanu is clearly still figuring out what kind of action hero he wants to be. But that uncertainty is exactly what makes Chain Reaction important. This is Keanu in the years between breakthroughs, too big to disappear, not yet defined enough to be untouchable. The film kept him inside the conversation for major studio thrillers at a moment when Hollywood could easily have stopped calling. Sometimes survival matters more than success. Chain Reaction is proof that showing up, even in a flawed film, even without a clear identity, is how careers stay alive between the moments that matter. Hollywood saw him as usable, not yet iconic, but usable. And in this industry, that is always the first step toward everything else. Number 9, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1989. Director, Stephen Herek. Here is where it all began, and here is where the first trap was set. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a time travel comedy about 2 spectacularly clueless California teenagers who need to pass their history class or their band, Wild Stalins, will never fulfill its destiny of bringing peace to the universe. The premise sounds like it was written on a napkin at 2 a.m. It probably was. And it made Keanu Reeves a cultural figure almost overnight. The reason it worked is the reason it almost destroyed his early career simultaneously. Keanu played Ted Theodore Logan with complete and total sincerity. No irony, no winking at the camera, no acknowledgement that any of this was ridiculous. Just pure wide-eyed optimism delivered with the conviction of a man who genuinely believes everything is going to be most excellent. Audiences loved it, and this made the industry panic. Suddenly, Keanu was labeled the goofy guy, the woe guy, the phone booth guy. Not a serious actor, not a dramatic performer. Just that charming idiot from Bill and Ted. That label followed him like an unwanted shadow for years. Every serious role he pursued came with an asterisk. Can the Bill and Ted guy actually do this? The answer, as it turned out, was yes. Repeatedly, emphatically, but first he had to spend the better part of a decade proving it to an industry that had already made up its mind. Bill and Ted launched Keanu Reeves, and then immediately made his life significantly harder. Not many films can claim both of those things simultaneously. Number 8, Point Break, 1991. Director, Kathryn Bigelow. This is where the shift begins, and the person who made it happen was not Keanu Reeves. It was Kathryn Bigelow, one of the finest action directors in Hollywood history, who looked at the Bill and Ted guy and decided he could carry a serious action film. That decision changed everything. Point Break puts Keanu as Johnny Utah, a former college football star turned FBI agent who goes undercover in the Southern California surf community to investigate a gang of bank robbers who call themselves the ex-presidents. The concept is gloriously ridiculous. Keanu plays it with complete and total gravity. That contrast, absurd premise, completely grounded performance, is what makes Point Break work. Utah doesn't dominate the film, he exists inside it. He gets swept up by Patrick Swayze's magnetic body the same way the audience does. He reacts to the world around him rather than controlling it. And Hollywood noticed something important in that performance. Keanu didn't feel artificial and physical. He felt believable, not superhuman, not stylized. Just real enough to take seriously when things got intense. That quality, physical credibility without artificiality, would become one of the defining characteristics of his entire career. Point Break identified it first. Everything after was built on it. Number 7. Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1992. Director, Francis Ford Coppola. Every career needs a disaster. This was Keanu's first one. Francis Ford Coppola assembled one of the most extraordinary casts in horror history for his gothic adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel. Gary Oldman as Dracula, Anthony Hopkins as Van Helsing, Winona Ryder as Mina, and Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker, the young English solicitor who travels to Transylvania and wishes very quickly that he had stayed home. The British accent Keanu attempts in this film has become one of Hollywood's most documented vocal disasters. Critics placed it on worst accent lists. Audiences laughed in theaters. One reviewer described it as sounding like someone had given a California surfer a dictionary and told him to guess. We cannot confirm that quote is real. We can confirm it is accurate. But here is what everyone missed in the chaos of laughing at the accent. Dracula taught Keanu Reeves the most important lesson of his entire career. Stop performing. Stop forcing theatrical styles that don't fit your instrument. Stop trying to be something the industry expects and start finding what you actually are. The failure pushed him toward minimalism, toward stillness, toward the subtle internal emotional register that would eventually make The Matrix and John Wick feel so completely different from everything around them. What looked like a humiliation in 1992 was actually direction. The most expensive acting lesson he ever received, and Francis Ford Coppola paid for it. Number 6. Speed, 1994. Director, Jan de Bont. This is the moment everything clicked into place. Speed is a film with one of the simplest premises in action movie history. A bomb is attached to a city bus. If the bus drops below 50 miles per hour, the bomb explodes. An LAPD officer has to keep the bus moving while figuring out how to get everyone off safely. That is the entire movie, 50 miles per hour or everyone dies. For 2 hours straight. And Keanu Reeves plays it with absolute zero irony. No jokes about the situation, no self-awareness about how insane it all is. No moment where he acknowledges to the audience that this is objectively the worst Tuesday anyone has ever had. Just complete urgency, total commitment, a man locked inside a system he has to survive in real time. The result is one of the most purely entertaining action films of the entire 1990s. Speed made $350 million worldwide and transformed Keanu from the Point Break guy into a full-scale bankable action star. Not as a comedic sidekick, not as a supporting player, as the lead. The unambiguous, carries the film on his shoulders lead. Speed answered the question Hollywood had been asking since Bill and Ted. Could the Woe guy actually anchor a major blockbuster? The answer arrived in a 50 miles per hour movie. And it was yes. Number 5. The Devil's Advocate, 1997. Director, Taylor Hackford. Now I know what you're thinking. Yes, Devil's Advocate was already in our previous video. And you're right. But it has to come back here. Because Devil's Advocate is where things get genuinely interesting and genuinely dark. The Devil's Advocate pairs Keanu with Al Pacino, a man who has never in his life been accused of underacting, in a supernatural thriller about a hotshot Florida lawyer who joins a Manhattan firm and slowly realizes his charismatic boss might be the literal devil. The conventional reading of this film is that Pacino devours every scene and Keanu simply tries to survive in the same frame. That reading misunderstands what Keanu is doing entirely. Pacino's John Milton is loud, theatrical, endlessly performing. Keanu's Kevin Lomax is quiet, controlled, slowly dissolving. The contrast is not a weakness, it is the architecture of the entire film. Kevin is being corrupted gradually, his ambition weaponized against him, his moral compass dismantled piece by piece, while everything around him becomes louder and more distorted. Keanu plays that dissolution with a restraint that requires watching twice to fully appreciate. The more chaotic the world around him becomes, the more still he gets. And that stillness is not emptiness, it is a man losing himself so slowly he doesn't notice until it's too late. The Devil's Advocate proved something crucial about Keanu Reeves as an actor. He didn't need to compete with intensity, he could anchor it. That quality would define his greatest performances for the next 3 decades. Number 4, The Matrix, 1999. Directors, the Wachowskis. This is the one that changed not just Keanu's career but the entire landscape of action cinema. Before The Matrix, action was relatively straightforward. Heroes shot things, things exploded. Everyone went home satisfied. After The Matrix, everything became philosophical, visually experimental, and technically ambitious in ways that studios are still attempting to replicate 25 years later. Keanu plays Thomas Anderson, a software programmer who discovers that the world he lives in is a computer simulation and that he may be the prophesied figure destined to free humanity from machine enslavement. The performance that carried all of that is built almost entirely on restraint. Neo doesn't overreact, he processes, he absorbs, he questions. He exists in a state of permanent calibration, trying to understand a reality that keeps expanding beyond what he can hold. And here is the remarkable thing. Every quality that critics had spent a decade using against Keanu Reeves, the stillness, the quietness, the apparent emotional flatness, became precisely the qualities that made Neo work. The Matrix didn't change Keanu Reeves. It revealed him. It built a role around exactly who he was and let the world finally see why those qualities were always a strength and never a weakness. Neo is the role Keanu was always going to play. Hollywood just needed 10 years to write it. Number 3, Something's Gotta Give, 2003. Director, Nancy Meyers. Nobody ever puts this one on a list. That is exactly why it belongs here. Something's Gotta Give is a Nancy Meyers romantic comedy starring Jack Nicholson as an aging music executive and Diane Keaton as the playwright he unexpectedly falls for. It is warm, witty, beautifully made and has absolutely no business featuring Keanu Reeves. And yet there he is. Playing Dr. Julian Mercer, a young doctor who falls genuinely and sincerely in love with Keaton's character despite their age difference, with a sweetness and romantic sincerity that completely disarms you. This is the most underrated performance of Keanu's entire career for one specific reason. It is the mid-2000s. The Matrix sequels have disappointed, his action career is cooling, Hollywood is quietly questioning whether the moment has passed. And Keanu Reeves walks into a Nancy Meyers movie and makes every woman in the audience wish Julian Mercer was real. He is warm, attentive, emotionally available and completely present in a way that his action roles never required. Something's Gotta Give didn't save his career. But it quietly reminded Hollywood and audiences that there was a genuinely likable human being underneath the leather jacket and the sunglasses. That reminder mattered more than anyone gave it credit for at the time. Number 2, John Wick, 2014. Directors, Chad Stahelski, David Leitch. This is the comeback nobody fully saw coming. And the one that permanently rewrote how Hollywood thought about Keanu Reeves. By 2014, the conversation around Keanu had shifted from active star to nostalgic figure. The Matrix was 15 years ago, Speed was 20, a new generation of action stars had arrived and the industry had largely moved on. Then John Wick happened. The setup is deceptively simple. A retired assassin's wife dies of illness and leaves him a puppy so he has something to love after she's gone. A Russian gangster's son breaks into his house, steals his car and kills the dog. John Wick comes out of retirement. That's it. That is the entire premise. And it produced one of the most influential action films of the 21st century. What made John Wick different from every action film around it was commitment to craft. Keanu trained for months. Firearms, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, tactical movement, to make every sequence feel completely real. The camera in John Wick holds on the action. No shaky cam, no rapid editing to hide what the actor can't do. Just Keanu Reeves, completely present, executing choreography with the precision of someone who has been doing this his entire life. John Wick didn't just bring Keanu back. It created an entirely new genre of action filmmaking, gun-fu, tactical realism, world-building through implication, that studios have been chasing ever since. And at the center of all of it was a 60-year-old actor who decided that if he was going to come back, he was going to come back as something no one had ever seen before. That is not a comeback, that is a reinvention, and it is one of the greatest in Hollywood history. Number 1. Toy Story 4, 2019. Director, Josh Cooley. You did not expect this at number 1. That is exactly why I had to bring it as number 1. Toy Story 4 did not make Keanu Reeves famous, it did not save his career, it did not produce a franchise or generate $1 billion or win him any awards. What it did was something far more rare and far more valuable. It made the entire world decide they loved him. Duke Kaboom is a Canadian toy motorcycle stuntman, based on a real 1970s Evel Knievel-style toy, who was returned by his child after failing to perform the stunt shown on his box. He has spent years posing dramatically and pretending the rejection never happened while clearly being completely destroyed by it inside. Keanu voices Duke with an energy that can only be described as himself turned up to 11. The dramatic poses, the sincere declarations, the wounded pride underneath the bravado. The moment where Duke finally commits to the impossible jump and screams into the void. It is simultaneously a parody of Keanu's entire screen persona and the most authentic expression of it ever captured. Audiences didn't just enjoy Duke Kaboom. They recognized something in him, the same quality they had been responding to in Keanu for 30 years without being able to name it, the sincerity, the slight awkwardness, the complete commitment to whatever he was doing regardless of how it looked to everyone else. Duke Kaboom made that quality visible, undeniable and universal. And by the time Toy Story 4 finished its run, Keanu Reeves wasn't just a movie star anymore. He had become something Hollywood almost never produces intentionally and almost never recognizes when it arrives. A genuinely beloved human being. That is the rarest thing this industry creates. And it took 30 years, 10 reinventions and a Canadian toy motorcycle stuntman to make it official. So, when you look at the full arc of Keanu Reeves's career, from the phone booth to the Matrix, from the bus to the Continental Hotel, from the British accent nobody wants to remember to the Canadian toy nobody will ever forget, what do you actually see? You see a career that refused every ending Hollywood tried to write for it. Most actors get one era, one defining moment, one franchise that carries them until the audience moves on. Keanu got 10. Each one built from the wreckage of whatever came before. Each reinvention stranger and more unlikely than the last. And maybe that is why people love him the way they do, not because he is perfect, not because every film worked, not because the accent was ever convincing. But because he kept showing up, kept committing completely. Kept finding something real inside whatever role he was given. Whether that was a time-traveling teenager, a messianic hacker, an unstoppable assassin, or a broken Canadian toy who just wanted to be enough. That consistency, across 40 years and every possible version of Hollywood, is not luck. It is character. Drop a comment below. Which movie do you think changed Keanu Reeves's career the most? And which one did we miss that deserves to be on this list? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to hit the like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe so you can get more of this content. We'll be back with another performance. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.